Hi everyone, this is our next review video for CEM mock exam paper C, and I'm going to be going through booklet 2 with you. Let's bring up the slides. So this is just confirmation of what this video will cover. So this is going to cover booklet 2, and this is from the CEM mock exam paper C. Right, let's go straight in. So you should have a copy of this booklet at home. So what would certainly be a good idea is that you have the booklet out and you can follow down through each of those questions. As we go down through, we'll be explaining how we've achieved the answer, and this is obviously an opportunity for you to make any jottings on anything that you found more challenging, or particularly if there's any vocabulary you need to record down or any strategies that you need to revise. So we would have gone through all the instructions with you when you actually did your test, but there's just confirmation of all the things that you need to consider. We're going to go through section by section now, just so we can divide it up into those different subject areas and make sure that you fully understand how those answers were achieved. These are the symbols that we talked about as well when you were doing your mock test, and these are quite important to recognise. So you've got the timing symbol, so that tells you how long you've got for each section. You've got the arrow, which tells you to go to the next page. You've also got like a warning sign here, and obviously don't turn the page until you're told to do so when you see that in your exams. And then this stop sign, which is means to stop and await any further instruction. So please do look out for those symbols when you do take your test, and I'm sure they'll all be explained again to you on the day. Right, let's go and have a look at the first section. So we're going to go down through word choice 2. I'm actually going to put Billy the Bookworm in the bottom corner just so it's easier for you to follow down through. And we're going to start by looking at the opposite section. Now, with opposites, just remember that you're doing opposites, not synonyms. You can use elimination in your booklet if you want to. You can cross out the wrong answers. So the example here we've got as majority, so we can cross out the other answers to leave you with B. Now, if we look at our multiple choice sheet, B had already been marked for you. You did need to mark C down. You don't get any marks for it, but it is important that you do mark down your example questions. So if we just have a little look at the second example here, we've got arrive and we've got depart. So as you can see, C has already been marked for you. Now, what we've just shown you on this part of the multiple choice sheet is all the answers here recorded. As you can see, a clear horizontal line is made across the letter, and we've done it to just show you how that should look. Let's now go and have a look at the actual questions. We're going to go down through these opposites and just explain them as we go down through. It is a good idea to have potentially your word and meaning book to hand, so if there are any words that you didn't know, you can easily record those down. So number 1 is protected, and the opposite of protected is insecure. Number 2 is valuable, and worthless is the opposite to being valuable. So if it's worthless, it's got no cost associated to it. Valuable, it's very expensive. Dirty and spotless. Spotless means pristine, so something's really clean. So dirty and spotless are opposites. Provoke and pacify. Pacify means to calm, and provoke means to antagonize. So provoke and pacify are opposites. So what you might like to do as you're going down through, if you want to just check them again in your booklet, you can just go down through and give them a tick if you want to. Question 5, we've got attractive and repulsive. They're opposites. Repulsive we might describe as being sort of ugly or grotesque. So we've got attractive and repulsive. Those are opposite in meaning. Weakness and might. Might has got two definitions. It could mean maybe, or it could mean strength. So might and weakness are opposites. Maker and destroyer are antonyms. Rude and respectful. Number 9, skillful and inept. So inept is not being very skillful. So you can write that down in your word and meaning book if that was a new word to you. Erratic and steady. Improve and deteriorate. Deteriorate means to worsen. So if something worsens, it deteriorates. And improve is to make better. Number 12, we've got sadness and merriment. Miserly, so miserly means being quite tight with your money. Generous, you don't necessarily have to be miserly with money, you could be miserly with anything, but miserly tends to be associated with monetary things. So we've got miserly and generous. Find and mislay, if you mislay something you tend to lose it. 15, we've got trust and doubt. Fake and authentic, and authentic means to be real, so if something's authentic it's real. Naive and cunning, they're opposite in meaning. Optional and essential, essential meaning you should have something or do something, it's essential. Number 19, we've got quiet and clamorous, clamorous meaning noisy. Notice and miss, if you notice something you spot it, if you miss it you would sort of either ignore it or not see it. Publicity and privacy are also opposite in meaning. Number 22, we've got ally and opponent. An ally being a friend, often associated with world wars, an ally, someone on your side. Orderly and riotous, those are opposite in meaning. Plain and ornate, ornate meaning decorative. End and outset, so from the outset is from the start, so you've got end and start, or end and outset as being opposites. And outside and interior. So that's the end of the first section. That was out of 26. So again, would certainly recommend that if there are any words that you don't know, even in the words that are not part of the answer, it is worth making sure that you know all of those definitions. I'm going to move on now to the reading section. The reading section is also commonly known as close passages. So we're going to have a look and see what you had to do for the close passage. So this is a word bank version. So you have all the words at the top and you have to select the right word to go into the gap. Certainly worth reading beyond the gap, also looking very carefully at the words that you've got at the top to make sure that you know all of the definitions. The examples have been done for you already, so D was marked down already on your multiple choice sheet, but you had to record H down for example 2. So we just have a look at example 2 here. H was the answer, and as you can see, all the words will be at the top. Now, one of the most important things to recognise here, each word can only be used once. Now, that may be the case on the day, but you of course need to listen to that very carefully to make sure that that is the case, that only one word can be used in each space. And it will obviously not, you won't be repeating any of those words. Let's go and have a look at the first closed passage. I think these are all based around the Vikings. So I'm going to read it through to you, and as you can see, you've got the letters there. And what we would advise is you cross out the letters that you've used to make sure that you don't use those words again. Also, it limits your choices a little bit as well. The Vikings travelled something distances in their longships, and even made it all the way. Now, the first word, the Vikings travelled something distances. You need maybe something like long distances. Let's have a little look. So the word vast stands out because vast means having sort of massive or long. So we can say the Vikings travelled vast distances in their longships. So we're going to cross out E because we've used that already. And even made it all the way something the Atlantic to America. And the word we need there is across the Atlantic Ocean to America. The ships were something, so we need a description of the ships. Seaworthy, in other words, they can go onto water, and were great for raiding as they could be something in. So we're looking for sailed in something waters. So a word that describes waters, we've got the word shallow. So shallow waters right up to the beach. On the front of the ship, there was a fierce creature, something into the wood. So it's sort of been made into the wood, and the word we're looking for there is carved into the wood, which was to something the enemy. Of course, scare the enemy. and their boats could hold up to 120 people primed for battle. Now, as you can see, we've got some words left over that we didn't require in that particular passage, but the ones that we have used, we've obviously crossed those out. Let's go and have a look at the next one. So we've got passage 2 this time, and again we've got a series of words worth looking at those first of all, and let's just read this through so we understand which words go in the gaps. In Viking times, gods were something, and Viking people gave great power. So in Viking times, gods were significant. In other words, important. And Viking people gave great power to their gods, believing them to have control over many aspects of their lives. Vikings did not follow a religion, but they did worship gods and something, and the word we're looking for there is idols, and made sacrifices to these gods to bring them luck and protect them in battles and on journeys. The Viking culture was strongly something by mythology, so we're looking for influence by mythology, and this had an impact on how they lived their lives. They believed that if they died in battle and were worthy, they went to Valhalla, which was ruled over by Odin. This was deemed a privilege and therefore meant that dying in battle was something and honoured, was admired and honoured. And again, we've got a couple of words there that are left over. Let's now go to passage 3. In Viking times, women were something more something than women across the rest of Europe at the time, were treated more fairly than women across the rest of Europe at the time. They were seen as something equal to men, almost equal to men, and had choices in most things, except who they married. This was decided for them by their families when they were between the ages of 12 and 16 years old. Women were something to run a household, were expected to run a household, and the Viking wife had responsibilities for managing the home, looking after any something, animals, and preparing food, as well as caring for the children. So again, got a few words left over, but you can see the words there that needed to go into the gaps. I think using elimination there is really important. Certainly once you've finished, and if you have any time left, it is worth reading the whole passage back through to make sure it flows fluently as well. Let's move on to the next section. The next section we're going to be looking at is called sequences, or they've described it as pictures too, but these are more commonly known as series questions. The examples have been marked down for you, so you can just see what you would have had to have done in the actual test itself. So you would have got A and D, and they would have been examples that you would have marked down. So you can see A there, and D has been marked down in the examples. So you don't get any marks for those, but it is certainly important you mark them down and you don't treat those, for example, as question 1 and 2. So do always mark your examples and listen carefully to what you've got to do. So as you can see, we've marked all the answers again here. Now, interestingly, with these questions, and we have a look at the first two, you can see that we've got actually 2 questions per sequence. And it is a case of looking very, very carefully at the missing boxes and understanding how that sequence is created. So we're going to have a quick look down through these just so we can understand how these sequences have been put together. So if we look first of all at number 1, you can see actually that the triangle in the middle here is alternating. So it's got these little white specks, but it's kind of black to white to black to white, black. And obviously it's then completely covered up. So we do know with number 1, we do need to have a black triangle. Now you can't use a figure twice in the same question. So once you've identified what's happening, so as you can see these trapeziums are closing in on that triangle, so they need to be quite wide apart. So D is the answer there, and you can look at the other answer options to see why they wouldn't work. Then with the next one, we know we're going to have a white triangle inside, and again these trapeziums now, they're actually going to be the bold shaded with little white specks there, so E will be number 2. So again, always worth looking really carefully at what's happening in that sequence and then identifying which shapes go into the missing boxes. On the next sequence, you can see we've got a diagonal line from top left to bottom right, and it starts with a little black oval, then it goes white, then it goes black, then it goes white. So it's alternating as it goes down, and then it's rotating. Now, the way it's actually going, it's going anti-clockwise, and it's going 45 degrees. So with question 3, we know it's going to be going straight down like that. And also we know that it's also going to be alternating in colour. So we're going white, black, white, black. So that's the reason that it's C. And then number 4, we've obviously got to rotate it from this shape here. And again, we're going to be going 45 degrees anti-clockwise. So it will be going completely horizontally as it shows you here in B. And it goes white, black, white, black. Looking at question 5 and 6, we've got this sort of pizza shape. And a circle divided up into sectors, and what's happening is we're losing a circle each time. So how are we losing them? Well, we're going anti-clockwise, and we're losing one circle each time. So this is the first circle we're going to lose. So the answer is B. And then if we move to question 6, we're going to take one more circle away, and that's why it should be F. So we end up having this quarter here empty, and then we've obviously got all the circles remaining in the other ones. And as we move along the sequence, you can see we're going to take one circle each time. Question 7 and 8. Interestingly here, it's worth just looking first of all at the diagonal pattern. So we've got a diagonal line here, therefore we're going to go up like that. So it is worth just having a little look, just so you can rule out the wrong ones. And also you'll notice that we've got a series of triangles, and we've got the black shape that is gradually moving down the shape. So we've got A for the first one because it becomes the second one that's shaded. And then here we've got the black triangle there, and it becomes the bottom triangle there in E. Question 9, we're removing 2 little squares each time. So we will need the full shape, or the full complement of little squares all together for F here. And as we move along, you can see we're taking 2 more away each time. So for D in question 10, you can see that we've taken these 2 squares away. Quite a simple sequence, I think, that one. Question 11, worth looking at this sort of ladder effect as we're coming down. So we've got the black shape at the bottom, and gradually it's going to move up the steps and move to the next. These are pentagon shapes, and also worth looking at the fact that they are mirrors as well as we move along the sequence. So you can imagine if I was to put a mirror line down through here and a mirror line down through there, we can see exactly what's happening. So 11 is B, and then E, because we need to go up to the 4th one, that's where the black shape will be. This one looks more complicated than it actually is. This is just a repeating pattern. So whatever shape we've got here will need to be repeated in there. So the answer is B. And then we've got another repeating pattern here. So for question 14, you can see that we're going to need D. Looking at question 15 and 16, we've got the shaded shape on the second shape on the inside, and it gradually moves into the middle until we've got the grey, and then it repeats again. So interesting, on question 15, we're going to have it on the, it'll be on the 3rd shape inside, so it'll be E, and of course it is facing towards the other shape. If you can imagine this curve shape here, it's actually facing towards that shape there. Question 16, the shading, the grey shading, will actually arrive in the middle. So that's what makes that C. Question 17 and 18, this one is what we've got. We've got different size rectangles. And what's interesting to look at here is this shape is actually rotated. So we're going to rotate it around clockwise, and we're going to move it all the way around. And as you can see on question 17, we end up having what was originally the white shape then becomes black, and then we're going to rotate it all the way around. So as we move along the sequence, we're actually getting, so we've got a the medium size one is black, and we're going to have the little one is black, and then the larger rectangle is black. And this also alternates with the grey and the white as well. So first of all, I would be rotating it so I know which way round the rectangles need to be. And then as we move along, we can be checking the shading. So if we look at question 18, we know here we've got the larger black, the medium-sized black rectangle, and then we're going to need the little one there. But again, it is being rotated around in a clockwise direction. Same applies with the white ones. So we've got a medium white, a little white. We need a large white there. And we've got a small grey, a large grey, and then a medium-sized grey shape there. Moving on to question 19 and 20. We've got a hexagon in the middle with a series of little squares on each vertex. And as we move along the sequence, the little black rectangle, the little black square rather, is actually moving around the hexagon, and it starts and it's going anti-clockwise. So actually, if we were to just see, so it starts here, just follow my red dot around, and it's just moving around that hexagon. So it is important that we can see how it actually starts. So we need it in this bottom right corner there, and it's just going to move around that hexagon. Also worth looking at the lines that we've got. So the lines do actually alternate as well. So I'm just drawing those in, and you are able to draw parts of the figure in if that helps. So in actual fact, sorry, I've made a little mistake there, because in actual fact it starts in the top right hand corner and it's actually moving clockwise around. Sorry, I was looking at question 20. Question 19, we need the little black square to move around in a clockwise direction. So when we get to question 20, it will end up being in the bottom right hand corner. And we're going to have a look at the last few now. We've got a series of arrows here. We've got a black dot, and that black dot is moving around the arrows, as you can see. So it would start up here in the top right. It's then going to move here. You can see where I put my red dot, and it gradually makes its way around the arrows. But what's also happening is the white shapes are also becoming more prevalent as we move around. So we start with no white arrows, then we're going to have one on question 21, you can see there. And then as we move along, we're losing one grey and it becomes white as we move around the arrows. So as you can see here, going round in an anti-clockwise direction as we move around those arrows. Question 23, I would focus first of all on one of the colours, one of the coloured circles. So we've got, if we focus on the black, you can see that the black circles are gradually, the shape is rotating around in a clockwise direction. So where would the two black ones be? So again, if I was just to put them in red, you can see where they would be on question 23. And then if we look at where they would need to be in question 24, they've now moved there. Now you can also look at the white shapes and also the grey shapes as well if you want to follow those around. So hopefully that's all very clear and you can understand how you've achieved your answers in the sequence section. We're now going to move on to Maths 3 and we're going to have a look at how the answers are achieved here. This type of maths section is all based on multiple choice, so all the answers are at the top, and as you can see the letter corresponds with the number. So if we look at example 1, we've got 14 plus 38 and the answer is 52, but you'll be recording it down as F. And that's actually already been done for you. But this one, example 2, this is one that you would have needed to have recorded down and the answer is G. So it's 194, take away 168 is 26. Now, what is interesting on these questions, and certainly even here in the example, you can see that there are some big white bits of space. And this is where you can do your jottings, and you are allowed to do your jottings on the question booklet, not on the multiple choice sheet, but you can do your jottings in those white bits of space and try and keep that close to your question as well. Right, let's have a look at the multiple choice sheet. So there are 16 questions in this section and you had 12 minutes. You had to work relatively quickly to get through all of the different questions. But this is just to show you on the multiple choice sheet what that looks like. With these questions, we've got about 4 or 5 questions that relate to something slightly different. So if we look at the first question, this is all about some different authors and how long they lived for. So it's certainly worth looking really carefully at the information that you've got up here. You can see I've done some jottings already here just next to their dates, just so we can see how long they lived. And then we can hopefully then start working out the questions. And hopefully you can do this bit of maths quite quickly just identifying how old those authors were. So, number 1, which author lived for 96 years? The answer is J. And you can see here that J relates to Norman Hunter. So if we find Norman Hunter here, look, we've got 1899 to 1995, so add 1 more year to 1900, and then add another 95 to get 96. So that's hopefully quite a simple one to start with. Which author sadly died when they were only 16 years old? So it was C, and that was Anne Frank. Which author lived for 10 years longer than Charles Kingsley? So again, just by quickly jotting down how old each of the authors are or were, then you can actually see what the difference is, because we're just looking for 10 years difference between 2 of them. And as you can see here, the answer is H. We've got Lewis Carroll, because Lewis Carroll was 66 compared to Charles Kingsley, who was 56. So again, my jottings hopefully are quite clear that you can see next to each of those dates how long they actually lived for. Which author lived for 10 years longer than Charles Kingsley? Sorry, that's one we've just done, which was H. Which author was 87 years old when they died? And the answer to that one is G. So it was Graham Greene, 87. Let's move on to the next section now. And the next section is all about different animals and the recommended way of keeping them. And again, you've got all the answers at the top. It's just a case of working them out. And again, I've got some jottings here just to show you. So Januka bought a new fish tank with a capacity of 80 litres. Her local pet shop recommend that if she plans to keep guppy fish in the tank, each guppy will need 500 millilitres of water to survive. What is the maximum number of guppy fish that Januka can buy for her new fish tank? So first thing to recognise is that 500 millilitres, if we times that by 2, that makes 1 litre, because we know that there are 1,000 millilitres to every litre. Now, if we want to work out, for example, if we did 16, because if we times that by 8, that's how many we would need for 8 litres. But remember, if we look at the question, the capacity of the tank was 80 litres. So we can get 16, because that's how many would go for 8 litres, and multiply that by 10, and then we get 160 guppy fish. So if we look at the answer options up there, we've got F as the answer. So I did miss out question 5 and 6. I'm just going to go back to those just to make sure we've covered these off. Ava owns 4 cats who each require 2.5 sachets of cat food each day. I've written 4 there. How many sachets of cat food would Ava need to buy in order to feed all her cats for a fortnight? So a fortnight is 14 days. So we do 14 times 10, because if we do 4 times 2.5, just show you over here. Some of you might be able to do that in your head, but just in case you do need to do it like this. So you've got 4 times 5, and then you do 4 twos are 8, add 2 there, and then we've got 10. So we know that Ava owns 4 cats who require 2.5 sachets of cat food each day. So that's 10 each day. But we are going to need to feed all her cats for a fortnight. So 14 times 10, of course, is 140. But the answer is B. Cyril has 2 dogs. I've just written 2 there just to make it clearer. Each of whom eats 1.5 tins of food daily. So that's 3 tins, of course, in total for the 2 dogs. Cyril is going to be away on holiday for 6 days, and his sister has agreed to walk and feed the dogs whilst he is away. How many tins of dog food will Cyril need to leave with his sister to ensure that the dogs have enough to eat? So we know they need 3 each day, and he's going away for 6 days. So we're going to do 3 times 6, which of course is 18, and then the answer would be D. Okay, sorry I missed out 5 and 6 there, but I've just gone back and checked those. We've already done question 7, and we're going to move on now to question 8. Again, when you're given lots of information, you do need to read everything that you're given. So we've got the table again at the top, and this looks like these are all in centimetres, and you've got the corresponding letters again. But let's just read the information. The school photographer is about to take a group photograph of the Year 6 children who are all going off on a residential trip. She measured the heights of all the children, and the results are in the table below. First question, what is the modal height of the 8 children? So the modal is the one that appears the most often. So the most common, the modal. And as you can see there, it's 130 because it appears twice. So G is the answer. Question 9, what is the mean height of the children? Now for this, you would need to add up all of the heights. I've actually shown you here already what the answer is, so it's 1080 centimetres. Because these are already nicely laid out in nice columns and the place value is all correct, then we certainly wouldn't expect you to write those out again. You can just literally add them up as they're written and you'll get that total. To find the mean, we add up all of the numbers together to get our total, and we divide by how many there are. So how many pupils there are in this case, and there are 8. So we do 8 into 1080 and we get 135. So A is the mean. We could also say, of course, for the mean, what is the average? Moving on to question 10 and 11, we're given a pie chart here, and the above pie chart shows the choice of footwear of 90 competitors in a half marathon. I think the important thing to recognise here is that the whole pie chart is worth 360 degrees. Now, the easiest way sometimes to work out some of these questions is to actually put the degrees into fractions, and then we're going to simplify those fractions, and then we can find fractions of 90 competitors. So question 10, how many runners chose to wear black running shoes? Well, the black is 80 degrees. So if we do 80 over 360, remember 360 is the total of the pie chart in degrees. And we're going to simplify that down. If we simplify it down, we get to 2 ninths, and 2 ninths of 90. Hopefully that's quite simple. So we're going to do 1 ninth is 10, and of course then we're going to double it to get 20. So the answer is E. How many competitors wore blue footwear? Well, with blue footwear, now we're actually not given those degrees. So what you might like to do here is first of all add up what you're given. So you're actually given 200 degrees. And then what's left over is 160 degrees. So we're going to work with 160 over 360. And again, we're going to simplify it until we get 4 ninths. So this time we're going to be finding 4 ninths of 90. So we already knew that 2 ninths was 20. So of course we're going to double that to get 40. So the answer is A. Having a look at question 12. How many more runners chose white running shoes than red footwear? So again, what I've done here is I've just shown how it will look as a fraction. So we've got 40 over 360, and I'm just simplifying it down. So I've got 1 ninth, then we've got 80 over 360, and I'm going to simplify that to 2 ninths. So we've got 20 and we've got 10. Now, of course, the difference between those numbers, you obviously can do that in your head, is going to be 10, which gives you H. And the last set of questions here all relate to time, and you've got lots of information here which you are going to need to use. So London is 5 hours ahead of Toronto time, Bangkok is 4 hours ahead of Moscow time, Dubai is 4 hours behind Tokyo time, Sydney is 30 minutes ahead of Adelaide time. So again, it's just worth looking at that information quickly. And you've got all the times at the top there that you can refer to hopefully identify the right answer. So first of all, Tony catches a flight from London to Toronto. So it's this bit of information I'm sure it's going to be useful. London is actually 5 hours ahead of Toronto time. And his plane, so a journey time of 7 hours. His plane took off at 7 o'clock in the evening and lands on time. So it's worth, with these questions, certainly jotting down the times, working backwards or working forwards. And then we've got to work out what will the local time be when his plane lands in Toronto. So the answer is going to be 9 o'clock in the evening. So these are written in the 24-hour clock. So it's worth knowing your 24-hour clock if you don't already. So you've obviously got 6 o'clock, 7:30, 1 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And it is worth certainly learning those. Now I've just shown you on 14, 15 and 16 just my jottings down here so you can see the times. And again, reading the information. So for 14 we've got G. So if we look at Saskia flies home from Dubai to Tokyo after a week's holiday. Flight leaves at 1 o'clock. So I've written 1 o'clock here. And arrives in Tokyo after an 11-hour flight. So that would be 12 o'clock at night. What time is it when Saskia lands in Tokyo? But we do need to add on 4 hours. So it will be 4 o'clock in the morning. And you can see again the jottings for 15 and 16. So the answer is C for 15. And for 16, we've got E. And it is all about trying to use that information that you're given there as carefully as you can to answer those questions. Right, moving on to the last section of this booklet. And we're going to be looking at something called reshuffled sentences. They've just described them as sentences, but we know that these are often called reshuffled. And the idea behind these is we're given a sentence. One word is not required, and that will be our answer. But it's given to you all muddled up, and you have to reshuffle it to find that superfluous word. The example 2 was C. And that, again, we've marked down for you up there. And again, you can quickly go down through. Lots of B's there, as you can see. But if you go down, you can see what the answers are for each of those reshuffled sentences. There were 14 of them, and you had 7 minutes. So you can easily work out that's 30 seconds per reshuffled sentence. What I'm going to do now is just go down through those reshuffled sentences with you, just to explain what the answers are, and you can check it against what we've got here. So, if we have a look at question number 1, we've got China tea rice that is of staple food. So we would start by going with, now sometimes you will get pronouns or articles that can start off the sentence, but in this case it is rice is the staple food of China, and tea is the superfluous word. We always read it as it's written, so entertain, fun, music, people to play, usually themselves. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but what we can try and work out in our mind is what would make sense if I reordered that sentence. So if we have a little look, we're going to start with usually. Usually what? Usually people play music to entertain themselves. So fun is a superfluous word there. And if we look at the next sentence, we've got the bridge was old and needed repairing. So crumble, we cannot fit that into the sentence at all. And if we look at number 4, now interestingly here we've got a possessive apostrophe, so we would need birds something. So we're going to start with the bird's nest was disturbed by foxes. Question 5. Our trees were, what were they doing? Blowing in the wind. Question 6. Now we have got a proper noun, so we can start with Samantha. What did Samantha do? Samantha borrowed some games from her brother. So lent is the superfluous word there. Number 7, we've got Jack. So we'll probably start with the proper nouns. We've got Jack. What does Jack want to do? Jack wants to be a professional footballer. So C is the answer there. Question 8, we've got to start with doctors and nurses mostly work in hospitals. Question 9, the Channel Tunnel eventually opened in 1994. Some can't a people's secret friend keep really. Some people, it's going to be something about can't keep a secret. Some people can't really keep a secret. The word really was a little bit difficult to get in there, but some people can't really keep a secret. Number 11, got a name here, so I'm going to go with Michael Morpurgo, is a famous children's author. Some of you, again, may have heard of Michael Morpurgo. It does help if you know a little bit about the context of the sentence. Question 12. Look at the next one. We've got most people. So milk, coffee, cereal put on there, most people. So we know most people put milk on their cereal. So most people put milk on their cereal. Sometimes it is interesting looking at the homophones that you've got there. So we've got there as in over there, and then of course we've got there as in possessive. It is worth looking out for those type of words. 13, we've got Poppy's. Now Poppy's what? Could be Poppy's airline, could be Poppy's dad. Let's go with Poppy's dad is a successful airline pilot. So lawyer was the word we couldn't fit into the sentence, and A is the answer. Sam football team every training week goes to. Sam goes to football training every week. So team is the answer there. So hopefully you were able to go down through and check all of those. That is the end of this video now. I hope you found it useful to go through. And we will obviously be sending out the results very soon. And I hope you found it useful to go down through and check all of those answers. Well done, everyone. Hopefully see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.